my first year shooting film. I wanted to take this video in order to just reflect upon the journey of this very, very expensive hobby. Now let's talk about what everyone wants to talk about is the setup. What do I use to shoot film? So I've been lucky enough to find these really good deals. I made a video on this already talking about how I'm able to find used camera deals and just save money in general, but we're gonna talk about my setup. So my camera body is the Nikon F75. I was able to get this for surprisingly 75 bucks Canadian. So to you US folks, that's probably like what, 15 bucks US. But I was able to get this from Facebook Marketplace. It was so good that I bought another one from eBay. And I was able to get this thing, which is a rare battery grip that you insert here and it's able to take double A's. So one thing you'll find with film camera gear is some of them take CR2, which is a bit of a hassle to buy and they're not that cheap as well. So they take CR2, but in return for using CR2, you get a smaller compact body. So this Nikon F75 has a good autofocusing matrix, whatever that means. A lot of people better than me in film cameras would know what that means. But one thing I do enjoy from this camera is that it's easy to use, especially for someone using film. Now for my lens choices, I have this 35 to 70 millimeter kit lens from like the 90s. And then I have a beast of a lens, a 28 to 300 Nikon ED AFS Nikkor 28 to 300 3.5 5.6 G. So this lens is very versatile in the sense that from 28 you can go all the way to 300 if you need the range. So 200, 105, 70, 50. So it also has a mode where when you activate it, it helps with like if you're shaky like me. And I think it's called VR. So what VR means is vibration reduction. I just Googled it. And then for another accessory I have this Nikon Speedlight SB-800 that I use whenever I'm shooting more like portraits or just fashion related stuff. So I've only used this a couple of times. I was able to find a deal again on Facebook Marketplace. I was able to get this for like 30 bucks, 20 bucks, something like that. And it's good. But honestly, the most important thing I think you can think of when you're shooting film is shooting the actual film stock itself. For the film stocks that I've been using, I've learned quite a bit with just diving deep into other people's content. Like for example, like Fuji 200 is the same stock as Kodak 200. So it doesn't make sense to, buy the more expensive one. Apparently it's just the same. So I've been using just Fuji 200 and I've enjoyed these film stocks that are very common in the film stock line of, film. But I've been able to test more funkier films that I haven't been able to get to. But let's talk about the pros of shooting film. So the thing with film stocks is that it's everyone's unique taste and what they like in shooting film. So what I like with my film stocks, you might not like, but I'll still display the stuff that I've been using and I'll just have labels on them. But talking about the pros of shooting film, number one pro for shooting film is that you have to be very intentional. Every frame costs money and every frame is finite. So that limitation just forces you to be very intentional with how you want the picture to show up, because it does force you to slow down. Otherwise, you're just wasting a frame and it's extremely expensive, which we'll talk about the mathematics of it. And you have to actually think before you press the shutter. And one of the pros is that it gets you excited. One of the things about film is that you saw the frame when you shot it in person, and then you start thinking about how it will turn out, and you just have this anticipation that it's a bit like a drug. It's like you're trying to anticipate how it's gonna turn out, and then you're just getting yourself excited, only to either find out that maybe you didn't shoot it the right way, or maybe you did shoot it and it's way better than you thought. And it's just these things make you very excited about shooting film. And number two, one of the other pros of shooting film is that you can't delete it. So if you're into street photography, you shoot someone, they can't tell you to delete it. I think that's one of the best things that you can do. I don't do street photography, whatever your definition of street photography is. I usually just, shoot landscapes. I shoot people time to time if I can, or if it feels safe. Yeah, you can't delete unlike digital. One of the pros of shooting film is that there is a look to it that is harder to replicate. And what I've found is that when I'm shooting with my gear and when I'm shooting with the film stock that I like, it's a different interaction when I shoot with sunlight. So I like shooting with sunlight. I think I'm in that category where I really prefer to have sunlight. It's just that unfortunately, I live in a city where there's not too much sunlight. But when there is, it's amazing. I like the colors, how it interacts with the film stock, the grain. And film just has this sort of different glow that a lot of emulations tend to have difficulty interacting with. Everything has been getting better from the years. So if you look at film emulations in DaVinci Resolve, a lot of them are getting really good. And I wouldn't be surprised if you get to the point where you can't distinguish both. But to me, it's also the intention behind it and actually the physical film stock itself. So I have a lot of these. I should be storing properly. But we'll talk about also the negatives on it being a hassle too. So one of the cons of shooting film is that these film cameras are old. They're from the 2000s. They're old, they break. Finding parts or just getting them repaired will be next to impossible in the next few years once the older technicians die. So there is a crisis, I believe, with camera technicians and people who are able to fix these older camera gears. A lot of them are old, and they're not passing off the knowledge, or there's not a lot of apprenticeships for these things. So hopefully it gets fixed. So one of the cons of shooting film is that the math is extremely expensive. If you think about it, when you buy a roll, it's around $10 to $20. And then in order to get that developed, you need to spend an extra either 15 to 20, maybe even 30 to develop it, depending on the quality you want, the scan style you want, and if you want it to get printed. So if you do the math, it suddenly becomes one shot is $1 or even more sometimes. And then you start to realize like, oh, this is way more expensive than buying a digital camera. So it is a hobby and a lifestyle and an extra choice, if you may. So be very careful with getting into the hobby and thinking that it might be cheap just because your first initial camera body was cheap, but then the film is gonna topple that expense. So another con that a lot of people who do film tend to encounter is that the film is sensitive. So heat, humidity, all of these things play a factor into the film roll. So if you're not mindful of this, again, this hobby takes time. And if it affects the roll, it's gonna look different. So you're working with a medium that isn't always forgiving. And sometimes that is the beauty of the film roll itself, is that because it is affected by something, like for example, there's light leaks in it, it tends to have a certain characteristic that a lot of people like or hate. So that's the beauty of it. One of the interesting business models behind film is actually when you buy a roll from camera stores that offer prepay for development and scanning and print. The camera store, they get cash right away, but the actual work of developing it doesn't finish until you get that roll. So you can look into these, especially if you have camera stores near you, local camera stores. Maybe they offer prepay, so you can save money on that end and then they get extra money from their end. So for me, film isn't that practical for a lot of people. It's very costly and you really have to love shooting film. You have to really love the look and love the cameras that you're playing with, because they're gonna die. Inevitably, they're going to die on you because they're old cameras, and you're gonna have to buy another camera in order to replace that camera. You can't just fix it. But maybe that is the point. So if you're chasing maybe reliability, you're maybe new to the camera game, maybe stick with digital if that's the case. But if you really want your work to feel intentional and imperfect and irreplaceable like film, I think it still has a place in 2025. And if you guys enjoyed that video, click on one of these. I'll see you guys there when I see you.